Hi, folks. James here, and welcome to the Spyro Circle, this time in collaboration with Forbes Israel. The whole world is adopting AI. Now, you and I are probably consuming it on a consumer level, and tapping away at ChatGPT. But businesses and enterprises are also adopting it on a massive, large scale. And one of the things that is never really spoken about is just how expensive that AI software can be. Enterprises are signing deals with partners and cloud computer providers and all of these different products and services. And the bills are piling up in the thousands or millions of dollars each year. Out of that problem came FinOps, financial operations that helps enterprises and companies sort through the money they're spending on this kind of technology every single year. And from that industry came Finout, a company out of Israel that raised $85 million to solve this issue. I spoke to co-founder and CEO Roy Ravhon about all of this. He was originally an engineer at a different company and saw firsthand about some of these problems that we've just mentioned. So he started Finout in 2021, and the company's grown to become one of the most promising startups coming out of Israel right now. We spoke about his journey as an engineer at another startup and what led him to identify all of those problems and what caused him to start a company to help provide solutions. We speak about AI, we speak about cloud computing, and we speak about all of the ways that people are trying to figure out the signal from the noise. I hope you enjoy. Roy, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, James, for having me. How are you?
Good, thank you. Hope you're doing well. I want to talk all about FinOut and FinOps and all of these different areas that your company is touching on and revolutionizing. But before we do, I want to get a big picture, please, over what is changing in the AI world, not philosophically, but financially. So, what are some of the changes that are currently taking place in that sector?
So, I think AI is changing a lot and have changed a lot of our day-to-day lives. And I think we're starting to see the actual enterprise adoption of AI starting to kick in. So it went from something that is fun to play with, and everyone uses ChatGPT. My mother uses ChatGPT. It became you have that test of how wide it is. But now it starts to get to the actual enterprise use cases, and we start to understand that AI is a lot more expensive than what we thought it would be. So we're going through a very similar journey to what we had with the cloud, just happening on AI, and it's happening significantly faster. So now we're spending all that money on something that we're not really sure what's the ROI from. We're not really sure how predictable it's going to be. We're not really sure if we're using it effectively or not. Just buying more AI services, and now as part of the product value for the enterprise to implement AI within its product means that it's part of our gross margin. It's part of what we're building as a service, and now it's a different ballgame if we miss our budget or we miss our prediction, especially for a public company. So is AI worth it or not? What can we do about it? How can we make sure it's keeping between the guidelines of what we set as an enterprise? Now we start to get to that game, and this is usually the more boring part of the AI adoption trend, but nevertheless something that is really important and really going to change the way that we use it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was boring. I'd say it was probably overlooked, right? Because everyone gets so excited over, and you mentioned ChatGPT, but I mean, there are, of course, a million examples of how enterprises as well as consumers can get excited over AI. But you're right; it's kind of like a running before you can walk situation, because people are rushing to adopt all of these technologies and they're spending all this money doing it. But actually, what you're kind of saying is, well, slow down, because the way that we're spending this money, we don't really know what is happening. So Talk to me a bit about FinOps then specifically. So for those who may not be familiar with the term and the practice and the kind of talk to me a bit about what it is exactly and why you felt it needed to have its light shined onto it.
So Finout started together with the cloud growth within the enterprise, right? Like we started spending all that money on AWS. It started with, okay, how can we reduce the costs? That was like the first question. But very quickly, it started to become a question of business value. We're spending $1 million on cloud services. What did we got in return? Cloud is not spend; it's an investment that I need to measure my ROI from. So FinOps emerged from that kind of concept, right? The idea is to have like an organizational framework that we can work together as an entire team on, so everyone can have their relevant data that we can see. There's like the FinOps Foundation is doing a great work in codifying what FinOps is, and there's like multiple different domains and multiple different personas and multiple different maturity levels, and each enterprise understand what is their specific kind of stance within the framework and how should we advance it. But the overall idea is to generate more value from how much money we're spending on cloud. And what happened in the recent years is that cloud became a big word, right? It's not just AWS and GCP and Azure. It started to become also our data warehouses and our CDNs and our monitoring systems, and lately also our AI solutions. So the entire thing is how can we generate business value across our entire expenditure, and how can we measure and how effectively can we get folks to care about it? Developers needs to care about what they're doing. They can always pick the most expensive server, the most expensive model, just spend a bunch of money. It's very easy to build a very good service like that, but you're gonna lose money. So how can you get that conversation into play? How can you get developers to care about their cost? How can we get them to be more aware, and eventually starts to create that culture in the organization that cost matters?
What are some of the most surprising ways that those costs add up? Some of the things that maybe people think they need to spend but don't need to spend, or hidden costs, if such a concept exists in this kind of context. What are some of the ways that those costs spiral out of control?
It's so many dumb ways. It's amazing. It can happen across. There's one flag that we clicked on Amazon that changed what our entire spend model without even thinking about it. I remember one of the enterprises we're working with had a couple of tens of $millions of shadow IT. What's shadow IT? Essentially stuff that we launched in the cloud, but no one knows what they're doing. Spending tens of millions of dollars on services that I'm just afraid to turn off because they can kill the service or they can have no impact. We just don't know. It's happening really across the board with shadow IT, with overutilized services, with stuff that we don't need, with over provisioned servers, and again the more expensive models than what we actually need for the accuracy level. So it's always easy to pick the expensive solution in order to sleep better at night and to provide better SLA with what you're doing. It's very hard to try to minimize those boundaries and even some kind of negotiation between the sides of what's how financially efficient do we want to be and versus the risk that we're taking. And the larger the organization is, the bigger those problems, because it starts to be a really decentralized kind of platform without a good culture that that forces that kind of accountability. It starts to become very, very, very hard.
For sure, and I can also then imagine that the bigger the company you work with, things move slower anyway in bigger companies, just by the nature of their size and how they operate. So I imagine that to be even more frustrating. Let's zone in a bit more to you guys, because we've addressed the challenge right? But I want to know how Finout is addressing it. So we're going to stay on what we've just said, which is the companies that are benefiting from a service like this. You folks, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this research I did ahead of time, but you guys were founded in 2021. You've since raised $85 million in funding in seed and Series A, but then you got a Series B of $26 million, and then a Series C of $40 million, led by Insight Partners. And you have since been recognized as one of the most promising startups of 2025 by Globes here in Israel. So you definitely entered the scene with a splash. And then some of your customers that use you and benefit from your service are Lyft, New York Times, Wiz, the Israeli company here, showing broad industry use cases. So people clearly see value in it, but I want to understand a bit more about the people that you serve within those enterprises. So when you look at FinOps as a problem or as a solution, who is the one that you need to speak to address this change of finance or business practice, like you just mentioned? Is it on the finance teams or the engineering teams, or is it leadership? Do you speak directly to the management? So who are the people that need to reassess how this cost is being managed?
So it's still being standardized across the world. So it's like DevOps in its early days. It's a kind of a hybrid creature that no one really understands where does it report. But usually what we see now that FinOps is somewhere in the CIO, CTO department for 70% of the cases. And only in the 30% it's will be on the finance side. And part of the reasons is that eventually FinOps is like a partial technical, partial financial kind of position. It really depends on the organization. Some organizations view it as a lot more strict financial use case, and some organization like this is just part of the engineering team, and it's very important to everyone to know what's up. And you see all kind of angles, but very commonly FinOps needs to understand what the cloud is, and they need to understand how to utilize the cloud. AWS have 200 million services on its own, and what's all those three-letter words means, and what do we use them, and what's the actual value. And sometimes it's hard to take a use case and go to the development team and confront them about it, or ask them about it, or at least get the FinOps as part of the design phase of a new feature. Let's also think about the cost consequences of what we're doing. So you need to be at least technical enough to hold those conversations, but you also need to be have the financial mindset in order to understand how to build proper allocation. How can you go from from all those spends into show back and then charge back to get for the department that they use the cloud services to actually pay for them. How can we budget? How can we forecast? What does finance needs to see? So
sorry, just to cut you off there. So where does Finout sit in the enterprise in that conversation where everyone is discussing where the costs lie and where they can be slimmed down? Where are you folks in them?
So we were built to sit exactly in the middle, and this what you're trying to do. We want to get developers to use Finout on a daily basis in order to, they ship new code, they ship new whatever, and they want to see the impact of what they how much they spend. So Finout is a great tool for that. But we also want to get finance logging into the platform in order to work on the budgets together with the team. It's a very wide kind of use cases platform, because we need to help with that translation. We need to help with the organizational discussion to break the silos between engineering speaking one language and finance speaking the other. So Finout is perfectly positioned to sit to be the operating system on which everyone are working and creating that organizational value.
Wow, that's great. And so, do you see any conflicts between any of the different departments?
Always.
Always. What can you tell me about
that? It's engineering tends to be, and I know I'm an engineer, we tend to be very, very defensive on what we're building. And you don't want to, the less person you want to talk to in your organization, probably as an engineer, is finance, right? Finance are asking questions that are good, but
Finance or legal as well. I always thought legal was the person you never want to speak to.
it depends what you did. But eventually, like finance, you need to give, you need to be accountable for what you're doing. You need to start to answer tough questions, and you're starting to face down with the business implications of your decisions. So there's an inherent conflict, because like finance wants to do it usually as cheap as possible, engineering wants to do it the best, and we need to find the middle ground on how can we compromise in order to build a service that is good and scalable and viable, but also preserve the unit economics of our business, so we can scale and meet the budget, but also like be conscious of what we're doing. Because usually in those discussions, in modern organizations, engineering are winning. Engineering are the modern buyers who just click whatever they want, to buy whatever they want. And even if finance sets a budget, like, that budget has depleted. What are we going to do? We're going to turn off the service, right? It's just impossible. So engineers know that, like, eventually whatever they're going to do, they will have the upper hand on a technological products kind of standpoint. So it's an inherent conflict, pretty much whatever you do, and the best way to overcome this is with data. So like to have all the data possible to understand exactly what the cost of the service that I'm running versus what the budget. Don't remember that it's going to be over budget once it's already happened. Understand the trend, understand where it's happened, understand where the inefficiencies are, understand what changed, and keep this kind of open dialogue and discussion between engineering, FinOps, and finance in order to get everyone happy and working together towards the same goal, which is making like the best product that we can actually sell in a viable price and keep strong unit economics for the company. So it's to change that mentality of fighting and start to work together in order to be the best.
No, it's great. And it's making me contemplate all of the ways, and I'm not an enterprise, obviously, but it's making me think of all the ways where maybe I'm not spending money effectively, whether it's a gym membership that I don't know exists, or a tier in one of the payment plans that I have that could be reduced onto a lower tier. So I kind of feel like a tool like Finout would really help me if I just kind of let it run my computer and say, log into everything and show me where I can reduce payment plans or insurance policies that can be tweaked. Or I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of consumer potential there. Is that something you think about, or are you just on the enterprise mission for now?
Yeah, I think it has a very different, similar characteristic, but a very different kind of scale and thought process.
For definitely different scale. I'm not dealing with, I'm not dealing with some of the numbers that those enterprises are dealing with.
Yeah, no, but like for the consumer space, there's the great solutions like Rise Up, that help you with manage your day-to-day financials. And what's really tough when you start to go to the cloud side of things is that the bills are very hard to understand. Like it's not a receipt you get when you go to the grocery store. You see like the price of every service, you see what's the total, and you're done. Even understanding how much money you're spending to the cloud provider is a question on its own, because there's so many different discounts and pricing models, and everything is billed by the second and by gig and by tier, and the bill files that we're getting from AWS are enormous.
Is that deliberate by AWS to kind of hide the signal in the noise?
Now we can get into a conspiracy theory ground, right? But you want to create you want to get a very, very, very comprehensive bill. But you also want to make it AWS started to build. There's actually an AWS FinOps tool within AWS that only looks at AWS, but helps you to understand how much money you're spending and start to get to get through the day to day. Because AWS also don't want you to overspend. If you're going to overspend AWS, you're going to go back on-prem. You're going to go to another cloud, right?
Right.
So it's always AWS tries to keep you balance between you're giving them as much money as they can, but without overpaying. So it's a very fine kind of balance. So AWS are actually very good partners in creating and creating those bills and working together with solutions like Finout. Like AWS is one of the strongest partner, by the way. They want to create and preserve that business value, and it's something that AWS really excels in, by the way.
Yeah, I want to now understand some of the questions that you may be hit with, because not hit with, but maybe some of the pain points that you may face as a company coming out to solve this issue. Because if enterprises, say potential or future customers of yours, are spending and investing in all of these cloud computing and AI tools, and then you come along and you say, here's another tool to help you with all of that, it can be a bit overwhelming, especially if the decision maker in that instance isn't an engineer or is part of financing or not part of financing. So what are some of the worries that companies, in your experience, what are some of the concerns that the companies have when you come to them and you say, here's another solution that we can bring you to fix some of these problems? What are some of the resistances that you feel when you come to that, and what are the costs of them kind of not taking you on, and what are the consequences of that not happening?
So like every software buying, there's a ROI discussion, right? But I think the industry has reached a maturity level where a FinOps tool is just one of the things that you need to buy. It's not considered a premium or some kind of luxury. It's like you know that you need a monitoring tool. You need like a Datadog within your life. You need a Wiz in your life. You also need a Finout in your life. Like it's very hard to run on cloud environments without something that can help you grow them and track what you're having. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all the companies are buying something. Some are perfectly okay with the native tools of the cloud providers. Some are building their own do-it-yourself kind of offerings. But usually once you start to hit a certain scale, the native tools are not enough. You're going multi-cloud. You have more difficult questions that you need to start to answer. And do-it-yourself is always harder than what it seems. So many enterprises think that they're a snowflake because they are, and they have their own kind of unique requirements. But processing cloud bills is a solved problem. So what we start seeing more and more in the market is it's not a buy versus build, it's a buy then build. So like you want to give the ability for enterprise to continue in building more capabilities on top of Finout, but they don't need to process all the bills. They don't need to create the cost allocation. Like we already solved this. We're the best in the market in this. We spend a lot of money and a lot of people and many years to get this to the level of polish that it is. It's redundant to build it again and again and again. So it's very uncommon to talk to an enterprise that spends enough money in the cloud, and for them like, oh, FinOps, no, we never heard of this, or we don't do anything. Like it's part of the things that you just budget as part of your cloud environments. But now we need to prove that we're the best. We need to prove that we're better than the do-it-yourself solution that they build. And this you do by being the best tool in the market, by have product excellency, by having the best people in relationship, by having a good brand. So that's like our day-to-day kind of operations as a startup company.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. It must be that it's just not my, FinOps is a new thing to me. I'm just kind of getting used to ChatGPT, let alone the FinOps tools that sit within the enterprises. And so it's good to know that the companies are understanding the needs and requirements in the AI space, right? It's like tools they need to have. I've spoken to other cyber companies that say, these companies, if they don't adopt these cyber tools, and this is a different example, they don't adopt our cyber tool, they just won't exist in 5 years because the attackers are going to completely exploit their vulnerabilities. This may be a bit too abstract for you and our conversation, but I'm just wondering, what do the companies, that your customers and these enterprises, what do they feel when they have to buy into these new technologies, whether it's AI in and of itself and leaning into that tech, or all of the additional products and services that come with that? So how do you see them adopting to the change?
So I think it's a very clear trend of there's a new technology, something that we really want to do, and we're running on adopting it. And then comes the resolution of okay, well, there's pitfalls to this. We didn't design it well. We're not using the technology as well as we thought. And now we need to start to go back and fix what we did, rebudget, renegotiate usually with the vendor because our usage patterns are very different than what we thought about, and then we can start to get it into production with confidence. So we see it a lot, like those hype trends with new technologies, especially with the large organization. It's the first time they're implementing AI. They're doing it all wrong. Then they need to go back to think about what actually they did. And the bill shock is a real thing, especially with with those services that you're not even sure how to use and you're
Oh,
not
it's
doing it well. And
overwhelming, right? Because they don't know
yeah,
what they don't know what and then a guy comes along or a person comes along or a company and says you need X, Y, Z, and it's like no wonder it spirals.
yeah. So you see it all the time, especially like with AI now we see it a lot because like what's a token? No one knows, and it's also like being defined differently by different vendors. And then like you start to budget your lives based on tokens, but you're unsure of how many tokens will you actually use per each request, and how will your customers will use your product, and how many tokens will you need for every question that the customer is asking you. So everything starts to become like a lot more complicated and significantly faster than what we had in the cloud.
Okay, wow, thank you. I want to understand a bit more now to you and your story because I want the listeners and viewers to understand what you saw to get you here. So you were in engineering at logs.io. So talk me
Mm-hmm.
through some of the problem. I don't want you to talk badly about anything. I
Never.
want to hear about your story and what you saw that and some of the experiences that led you to some of the solutions that we've been discussing today.
Sure. In Lux.io, I was responsible for the infrastructure team, and it means that I was spending a lot of money, and I was also the person that was expected to give answers, rightfully, by the way. So we were spending all that money on AWS, and then we started to move to like adopt more AWS services, migrated to more regions, then added Azure into the picture and moved some of the workloads to there. And we also had Akamai and Stripe and Twilio and a couple of security products. And now like we have this entire like breadth of usage-based price software that we're paying them as much as we're used as a service. So like the more data we got in to Lux.io, the more interactions that we had with our data, the more we paid to usage-based price services, which is very, very common pattern. And because of that, suddenly like very basic questions started to become super hard to answer. And we started trying to understand like what's the cost per customer, and it's something that we thought that should be trivial, right? You need to understand like I have a customer in my SaaS environment. How much money does it cost me to host them? Like what's my gross margin on that deal, and how can we build better pricing to negotiate that? And the reality is that it's super complicated because everything is multi-tenant environments. We have one database that is being used by 1,000 different customers. What's the stake of every single person within the data set? Even growth of we spend 5% extra on AWS this month. Is this good or not? Like, did this what you expected? Did we actually save money because we expected to spend more? How can we budget what's happening? So all those questions were like a basic part of our day-to-day lives, and we were using one of the market leaders at the time, and we really struggled with those questions. And we started building like our own capabilities on top of that market leader, and things like crashed and failed and had errors, and like it was even worse than not having it. And at some point it's just like okay, we need to build a tool that we want to use. Like we were born in this industry, like we've seen it evolve, and there's not a single tool in the market that we wanted to actually work with. So we felt that it's a very good opportunity for us to storm ahead and just build what we perceive to be the new market leader, and we went for this.
That's kind of the story is story as old as time, isn't it? Right? Like
Yeah.
you look for something, you don't have it, so you build it, and they will come. So I love hearing stories like that, especially when people come from one company or one sector of a business and they build the solutions to the problems that they identify. It's a very entrepreneurial story, I think. Well, I guess you've described yourself. I know that we spoke ahead of this call, and we were discussing about some of the competitors in the space and some of the industry players and some of the other companies around. And you described yourselves as the Salesforce of FinOps. Talk us through what you meant by that.
So because of everything we just discussed, FinOps became like super popular. Like everyone wants to do FinOps. There's a bunch of companies coming up, and it's like cyber. Like with every new generation of technologies, there's like a new generation of FinOps companies starting to solve the cost management solution of it. So like you see like a bunch of AI cost management companies right now, and like it's keep on happening. So what we very commonly see is that there's a differentiation between I have a problem right now and I need a tool to help me fix this. So like I have a cost inefficiency. I'm bad with committing to AWS. I'm bad with right-sizing my Kubernetes environment. I'm bad with adopting new technology. I'm bad like there's a bunch of things that can happen, and then I can bring in a point solution that can help me go from a zero to whatever, and they're very, very, very helpful if I have the specific problem. But once my problem have changed or shifted, also the optimization tools that I'm working with can change based on the specific problems that I have in my existing lifecycle. Maybe I change technology, maybe I re-architected, maybe I move to a different cloud, maybe I'm already like it's already like built into the open source or the cloud providers. But what hasn't changed is my ability to report, to forecast, to get the entire organization again, like building that FinOps mentality. So I love to think of Finout as like the the underlying kind of operating system for FinOps, which is like the equivalent in the sales side is equivalent to a Salesforce. Like this is a system of record that I'm building my entire practices on, and then I can start to integrate like multiple different vertical tools that can help me with my specific piece of the puzzles, right? So like every organization is different, and every organization has a different puzzle and different pieces that fits to it. But everyone needs a CRM. Everyone needs an ERP, and everyone needs a Finout in order to start to build that kind of capability for the cloud native era. So we're the basic part, and then you can start to build more and more and more vertical solutions on top of it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And so what are some of the what does the best tool even mean in the FinOps space? Like, so talk me through like what that looks like. If we take everything that we've discussed today, what is the best? And I don't want the easy answer to be Finout. I want to because I want us to go a bit beyond that. But what does the best tool look like? Is that where it sits, or what it produces, what it achieves, what it tells? Like, what's the best thing for FinOps?
So I don't think there's a best, like a global definition of a best, right? Like every organization is different. If you look at, a credit card company that have tons of regulation and huge data centers and mainframes and everything, it's not going to be the same answer as a startup company that was born in the cloud and just starting to scale, right? So what's best? So I think there's different tiers and different requirements from your product. What commonly described as one of the initiatives that you want to get to is to get to as close to 100% cost allocation as possible. Cost allocation is like the basics of almost everything that you want to do. So from getting teams to care, getting engineering departments to understand how much money they spend for their specific service, helping finance understand what's the cost of this specific initiative, getting into showback and chargebacks, getting into financial planning, forecasting. So like it's the basic part of almost everything we do is cost allocation. So we see cost allocation being a huge motivation and considered like best in in enterprise adoption, and this is what Finout does best in the market. It doesn't mean that Finout is the best tool for every single company out there, but usually, if you want to understand that cost allocation is your problem, you have usually a complicated kind of sets of like the architecture of business organization that you need to start to have lots of flexibility in how you actually allocate. Nothing can compete with Finout right now, and this is like what would be the best for that use case. If you need the best right sizing optimization, Finout is probably not going to be your tool. So it really depends on what problems do you have.
Okay, wonderful. That's a very diplomatic answer, and I expect nothing less. That was wonderful. Roy, we're running out of time, I'm afraid. We're getting to the end of our conversation and the end of our notes. I've really enjoyed it. I've really learned, for me personally, learning about this whole industry that I don't have my hand in, right? It's not something that I'm so familiar with, but to hear it from you guys, like from the personal story, and then how you're bringing those solutions to an enterprise, I'm finding really valuable to learn, and I love learning things like this. So thank you for your time today. I do want to close our conversation how I often do, which is with a quickfire round. So I have some questions here, and I want you to answer as quickly and as shortly as possible. And we'll just get some last-minute insights out of you before we close today. So what is one cloud cost myth that you wish would die?
That we need to think a lot about committing to the cloud providers versus just doing it.
One metric that every CEO should look at weekly.
Revenue.
What's the best advice you give founders selling into the enterprise?
It's a hard battle, but don't give up.
What's one trend in cloud spending that people aren't talking about yet?
I think AI is still not talked about enough in, it talks about enough, but not in the cost side of things.
Okay, Roy, final question. If enterprise leaders remember one thing from our conversation today, what should it be?
Allocate.
Wonderful. Thank you. Roy, thank you so much. I said that was the last question, but I lied a bit. I do want to add one last question, which is what's the best way now for those finishing this conversation to follow you or connect with you or follow what you guys are doing up at Finout?
So we're trying to be very, very active in LinkedIn. Personally, it's something I don't do enough, but I try to. But the company page is always updated. We have a great website with tons of resources, tons of data, case studies, documentation, everything you need in order to understand like what Finout is, what value can you get, and we're always happy to have a conversation about anything FinOps, even if you don't buy a tool. We're happy to help and be a service. Something that's very important to us.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll make sure to put all of those links at the bottom where they can connect and follow and read all of those extra materials. Roy, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much, James. Had a pleasure.